We are live.
Liz, Florence, before we start, I want to make a disclosure that the first application for BSA at 3211 Newtown Avenue, my office has been involved in that application, and I'm the applicant of record at the building department for the extension of term.
Thank you. And I assume Sandy is making the same.
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me? I would like to disclose that as well, that the application is an application that the office that I'm associated with is working on.
Okay.
As the architect of record. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay. First, I want to welcome you all. This is the February 7th, 2024 meeting of the Land Use Committee, Board 1, Community Board 1, Queens. As you know, everything is recorded and will be posted on YouTube. The first item on the agenda, no, that's the board. Okay. The first item on the agenda is a BSA it's a special permit 540-86BZ.
Through the chair, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We had the ADA presentation prior to the BSA because the police presentation is very short. That was on the agenda.
No, it wasn't on my agenda.
The one that we sent to the board, the formal agenda, the one that's posted on our website and duly advertised.
We'll discuss it offline. Okay, who is representing them?
Hi, good evening. This is Michael Russo. I'm with Lero Engineers and Architects. We are the architect of record for that project. Anthony Crane, which was trying to get in just a short while ago, he represents NYPD. He was going to make the presentation. I'm not sure if it looks like he's having issues logging in.
Anthony, please accept the promotion. He's using two devices, Michael. He won't be able to get in. He can only use one device. At one point, he was in the meeting. Well, there he goes. Try now. Anthony, are you able to unmute? Anthony? Michael, if you don't mind, the board would move forward to the next item. Let Anthony work out his glitches with the technology.
I can make the presentation if you would like.
Madam Chair, are you okay with that? You're muted, Madam Chair. You're muted, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Russo, will you please continue?
Yes, sure. Is there a way, how do I share my screen? Is there a way to share my screen? Yes.
Go ahead.
So is everybody able to see the screen here?
Now we can.
Okay. So this is the project, is the 114 precinct. It's in Astoria, Queens, right by the Grand Central Parkway and I think Astoria Boulevard. So the project involves ADA upgrades to the main entrance of the facility and to one of the side entrances. So this is the facility. This is the entrance on Astoria Boulevard. So we're modifying this main entrance, and I'm going to show you in what way. So these are just some existing conditions. There's the main entrance and there's a side entrance here by the parking lot for ADA accessibility, which leads to a ramp that goes inside the building and has a gate. And these are some side views. Currently, the gate, the entrance to the ramp is not ADA compliant, even though it has the sign. It's very difficult for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to open the gate and get access to the facility. And also, the facility does not provide ADA access to the main entrance, which in a way discriminates against somebody with disability because the regulation dictates that they need to have a person with disability needs to have access to the main entrance. These are some additional views. This is that gate that we were talking about. As you can see, sometimes it's blocked. There's a generator right in front of it that kind of blocks it. These are some top views. This is the area of existing work. You see the gate there, and this represents the main entrance. I'm going to show you what the scope of work is just in a second. So we're modifying a little bit the front gate. We're providing an ADA lift on the inside of the facility. In order to do that, we have to change a little bit the front doors, and we're also changing this gate here to enhance accessibility to the existing ADA ramp. We're also changing the ramp on the outside of the facility. Now, here are some close-up views. So this is the existing door. The existing gate was not opening fully. Like I said, it was just hitting the bollards of the generator. We're enlarging the opening. We're creating a full accessible gate that is operated by a push bar, a push plate. Somebody in a wheelchair can easily get access in there and then use the ramp to get inside the building. We're also providing, this is the wheelchair lift detail number 5, which allows for somebody in a wheelchair to get inside the facility to the main gate, the main doors, I'm sorry. So these are the main doors that we're slightly modifying to provide that accessibility. This is the type material that we're using for the gate. So this is it. This is the project involves a few other things on the inside, but this is the main scope of the project on the exterior of the building. Do you have any questions for us?
No.
No. Okay. So we would like to request a letter of support that we need to apply to the Public Design Commission after this presentation. So for that, we just need a letter of support from your community board.
Okay, are you intending to take this to the board on at our regular monthly meeting?
If you need us to go, we will go.
Well, I think it was more appropriate for you to show it to the board rather than to us, since there's no land use or zoning issue involved here. So, yes, I would recommend it. I'm sure there's not going to be an issue, but, you know, the community board will have to decide whether they will support it. I'm sure there's not an issue, but, you know, when is the meeting?
Through the chair, Madam Chair, it's February 20th. However, usually under business, when it's a letter of support, the Land Use Committee just recommends a letter of support. That was a traditional method. That's why they were scheduled to come tonight. And this was discussed over the phone with you, Madam Chair.
I said we discussed it offline, Florence. I'm
That's
recommending.
separate. That's separate. I had spoken to you about this on the phone about the fact of the letter of request,
Can we
if you
move,
recall.
can we move on to the order of business, okay? At this
Yes,
point,
ma'am. Thank you very much.
we will be, so we'll see you at the meeting. And
Okay, it's on
the
February
20th,
20th, and it's at the Astoria Manor.
Yes.
the board office will give you the information.
Michael, I don't know you. Please email the office tomorrow. I'll follow up and I'll need a copy of your presentation, please, for the board's records.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's see, I believe we have, Stephanie Marazzi is going to make the presentation.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Okay, but we are now introducing again, BSA 540-86 BZ, 3211 Newtown Avenue, and this is the Key Food Supermarket expansion. So, Ms. Marazzi, would you continue?
Thank you for having me. My name is Stephanie Marazzi. I'm at the law firm Hirsch, Singer and Epstein, and I'm representing 148 Jamaica Avenue Company, LLC, which is the applicant for this special permit. They are an affiliate of Mandel Food Stores, who operates Key Foods throughout the city. And I'm accompanied today in this Zoom by Gavin Lieb, who is a principal at Mandel Food Stores and will be available to talk about operations of the store. So this application to the Board of Standards and Appeals is essentially an application to allow the continued operation of this grocery store, which has been there for 50 years, possibly longer. Let me just see if I can click forward. Okay. So the address is 3211 Newtown Avenue. We're at the corner of Newtown Avenue and 33rd Street. The building is split between two zoning districts, a C42A and an R6B residence district. It's a one-story grocery store with approximately 18,000 square feet, existing since 1951 and actually enlarged into the residence district in 1987 when the initial special permit was granted. So the special permit was granted in 1987 for a 15-year term and extended twice for 2 terms of 10 years each. We are now requesting once again to extend the term of the special permit and finally to remove the term limit, considering this is a building that has been there for decades and we want to ensure the continued operation of the food store without having to come back for permission to maintain a commercial use in a residence district, which is what the special permit allows. And I'll show on the next slide how the building, you can see the site in red and the outline of the building. The site straddles a C42A district, which is a commercial district in which grocery stores are permitted. And then towards the back, away from Newtown Avenue, it's an R6B district where commercial uses are not permitted. So the special permit allowed the extension and enlargement of this building and the grocery store use into the R6B district back in 1987, and it's continued in that state ever since. We have an aerial showing I'm sure you're all familiar with this grocery store, but it sort of gives you a little context as to its location in relation to the subway, very close. And we've got some photos showing the store. This is at the corner of Newtown Avenue and 33rd Street. Further looking down Newtown Avenue, sort of wrapping around the side. And then this is a view from 33rd Street of the site. That sort of sums up what we're here for. It's a fairly simple application, but I'm sure you all may have questions. So I think Gavin and I are prepared to talk about the store.
Can you talk a little bit about the traffic movements, the vehicular movements along 33rd Street? I know, and how that's been working over the years?
I think Gavin might
Thank you,
be.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Gavin Lieb. I'm with the ownership of the property, and we also own and operate the supermarket. One of the things that comes to mind when you talk about 33rd Street is that it is a pretty busy thoroughway into the Grand Central, and we have a loading dock that allows us to maintain traffic at a continuous pace as reasonably possible, given the constraints of our business. One of the things I've actually done of recent is reach out to DOT to add a truck loading zone on the street, totally separate from this, to further facilitate traffic and so that there's no double parking or issues, because I know it's been a priority of the city and especially DOT to have these neighborhood loading zones in place. So in line with that, we're looking, and this permit is part of all of that together. It's a way to help continue to facilitate the smooth movement of traffic along 33rd Street.
Okay, thank you. I know I grew up down the block from that, so I know it's an issue. Okay, are there any comments from the questions? Evie?
Yeah, obviously this supermarket is very important to a lot of people in the community. But I'm just wondering why you would request like removing any reapplications in the future. That just seems really unusual to me, especially since I think you just said it's a fairly simple application.
I can answer part of that at least. Even though it is a fairly simple application, it is a very time-consuming and expensive process to go in front of the BSA to make an application. And the way we see it, this building, it's there. To have to request permission to maintain the building and the use every 10 years just seems like an unnecessary burden, considering we can't really use the building for anything else. It's designed as a grocery store. That portion that extends into the R district can't be converted to anything else. So it seems like it's a permanent situation, and really the approval should sort of reflect that.
So the permit is specifically for Key Food to operate that grocery store.
Land use approvals are never specific to a business or an individual, so it's not specific to Key Food. That's not the way it's written. But Key Food owns the site and has no intention of leaving.
Okay, is this a use group site, use group 6 use?
Grocery store, yeah, a use group
Okay.
6. Mhm.
So, but the fact remains that Key Food can determine that they want to move and reuse the site in anything within use group 6. So I think that's the issue that's coming up. Can there be another commercial use in the future or does the permit that's issued now only deal with the supermarket use?
I can interject 1 second, Liz.
Thank you.
So the property, the special permit runs with the land, with the building.
Right.
So if any change was to happen in this building and the Key Food or any other entity wanted to do any alteration to that building, special permit would come up, and there's plans associated with the special permit. And then that would go to the Board of Standards and Appeals to make that change.
Does that also include the use, Jerry?
Absolutely, whatever's on the plan.
Okay.
So let's say they wanted to divide it up, or make it a big shoe store. Right now, the approved drawing says supermarket, so you can't have a big shoe store.
Okay. So if it's not complying with the plans associated with this particular application, then
It would come back to us.
they have to get a new permit to
It would
occupy.
come back to us.
Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think what's being asked by the applicant is the term, so they don't have to come back. That doesn't preclude coming back to us for any change.
Okay. Evie, is that acceptable? I mean, that answers your question?
I think so. Thank you.
Anyone else have a question? Okay. Well, I want to thank you. This is going to go before public hearing at the community board on the 20th. And I have, there are no other issues really to address. That probably will be the question that comes up there. Okay.
Understood. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So the second item on the agenda is the City of Yes housing opportunities. I put this on the agenda. I really don't have any other information other than what city planning has been posting in its informational videos. But I think I'd just like to open it up for questions about what you want to see happen or covered, or the information that you're going to need. Obviously, Jerry, you're going to need, go ahead, you can.
So I went to a presentation by city planning. It was given to the Builders Association, and it was well attended by the builders, obviously. I don't know, were you there, Colin, at the Builders? No, okay, I forget the gentleman's name who gave it. But in any event, it's also far-reaching. And there's no question that our committee should have the same presentation that was given to the builders. And it wasn't in depth per se. It didn't go over section by section as we got involved with, Liz, in our previous delve into the law. But I'll give you an example of one thing that was striking to me. The proposal for housing opportunity will require no parking for any new residential development in the city of New York. Think about that for a second. So I build a 30-story building. Wherever. Not in Midtown Manhattan. I'm talking about in Queens. In Astoria. And you could provide parking, but you will not be required. Am I right, Colin?
Yeah, that is my understanding of the proposal as well. That's correct.
Yeah, and there's much more. That's why, I mean, we definitely need a presentation. There's no question about it. I just don't know the timeline off the top of my head for our review of this whole section of law and initiative, but we can't understand it by a PowerPoint, that's for sure.
Jerry, if I can just step in for a second. I guess I'm firstly a little confused by the differentiation between the PowerPoint and the presentation, which, but I do just want to say now that this proposal hasn't gone into referral yet, and it probably will follow the same timeline that we had for carbon neutrality last year. So you can anticipate that to happen later in spring, but before we go to, before the summer comes in. But city planning is just trying to be proactive, and that's why we have these information sessions that were linked in the agenda. So I would really encourage all of you, if you're interested in this proposal, to tune into those. They'll be recorded, and you can definitely spend time listening to them. And we'll also have thorough, similar presentations to what you saw at the builders meeting to be given to the committee and to the.
I'm sorry, you cut out a little bit. You're going to give it to the city. You're going to do presentations to the board?
It'll work just like City of Yes did with, for carbon neutrality and for economic opportunity. We'll have presentations for both of them.
Okay. So when are you going to start that? When are you going to start your outreach?
It'll be post referral, and I don't have the exact date for referral yet. So that will be in the coming months, but when be in March and wouldn't be in April likely.
Okay. Does anyone else have, Evie, you have a question?
Yeah, Colin, are the presentations the same? Like the ones that you do for the builders, are they the same as the ones that you'll be doing for community boards?
I personally haven't seen these presentations yet. I can't imagine that they would be significantly different. I think if anything, we'll tailor these more towards how the proposals will affect this board specifically and the zoning districts within Community District 1.
Yeah, does that answer your question, Evie?
Yeah, I guess just to follow up, are the presentation that you gave, not you, but DCP gave to the builders, is that publicly accessible? Could we see it before our own meeting or?
I can reach out internally.
Colin, you're frozen.
I don't
Okay.
think it wasn't
I can see
video,
about
that
that.
was there.
It wasn't, Jerry, it wasn't what?
It was not videotaped, as far
Oh.
as I know.
Okay, so it was like a free form presentation,
Yes,
speaker, okay.
there was a speaker going through general items, but obviously there were a lot of questions and that speaker answered them. I could find out who it was. Hold on. He was
Yeah.
very good, by the way.
Okay, Evie, you still have a question?
No,
Follow up?
I'm sorry, I'll lower my hand. I forgot.
Richard?
Yeah, hi, how you doing, guys? I did have a question, Colin. I did watch one of the presentations and I just wanted to make sure I'm clear. They were talking about the 20% increase in FAR. And it would be MIH only though for the 20% increase. And is that for senior housing or is that for all housing?
So yeah, just a few things. Firstly, I'm not prepared to speak to all these proposals today, and given that not everything has been final, like ironed out entirely, I don't think it's a great idea for us to. But I will say that currently that's how the program works for seniors already as of right. So I think the intention is to expand it past
I see.
just seniors, but to all
program.
MIH units. But yeah, if you do have any questions, there is an email that I'll drop in the chat here that all the experts on City for Housing Opportunity are part of that distribution list, and they'll be able to answer those questions much more thoroughly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the questions I had about that was I was a little confused because if you have an MIH of 25% or something, then you're adding the other 30% or excuse me, 20% on top that has to be MIH. I mean, do you add them together? Are you creating, so you need to have 50%, 40 or 50% MIH, or is it one, just the additional? Does a 30% not apply? In other words, I wasn't quite clear on how that was all supposed to be handled. So that is a question that I think I would want answered at some point to be clear on that.
Okay, Colin, we're just introducing this, and I thought it was a good opportunity to flesh out some of the things that, like Richard, questions that are coming up. Didn't expect you to have to do a presentation or have the answers that, right off the top of your head. So, I mean, one of the things that we, from the economic opportunity phase of this, was the short amount of time that we had to review the actual zoning resolution changes. So are they going to be giving us, do you have any idea when the text is going to be coming out? Because this is going to be probably much larger than the economic opportunity issues. So that's a concern about the lead time we're going to have to review this.
Yeah, what I can say is that the number of proposals is definitely going to be shorter than economic opportunity. So in terms of like the technical review that might be required for this on your part will be a much lighter lift. I don't imagine that it doesn't mean that they're any less worthy of, at-length discussion. So we are going to try to have a similar timeline of releasing some sort of draft text to have to you ahead of referral, but I don't have the exact timeline for that.
Okay, so you're saying that the number of changes to the resolution are significantly less than what happened with economic development, economic opportunity, but they're going to be big. They're going to
big in a different way. Yeah, depends on how you measure it, but yeah, yes.
Okay. Any other questions? So you think we have another month before anything comes out?
More than that.
Yeah, I think we'll have some sort of materials in April, but still unsure on the timeline.
That sort of makes me more anxious, because it gives you time to worry about what's coming and how much has to be done in a short period of time. Okay. All right. Well, don't go away, Colin, because let's see. All right, so I just wanted to say I put down the dates on that on the agenda that I sent out. The next one is February 27th, which is the diverse housing types. Do you know anything? Can you explain a little bit about what that is going to focus on? Conversions, shared small homes. I mean, I understand these are new types of living facilities, residential facilities that they're talking about establishing.
Yeah, again, I'm not like terribly up to date on all of these proposals at the moment, and I think just attending these meetings will help give you a primer into these presentations that I'll give in the future.
Okay, I know that some of these shared small homes were they have common areas, common kitchen areas, things like that. So sort of like dorms or whatever. Okay, all right. So that's on the 27th. Next item, I sent you some minutes to approve from February of last year. And I sent it because I was confused about when that project was going to be coming up before us. I think it's going to be certified according to Colin on the 20th. So I put together the minutes because we had an informational hearing last year. So you have that for next month.
Madam Chair, I sent you the Dropbox for your review also. You have it in your email box from about 2 weeks ago because I thought you might have put it on this agenda. So you do have a copy of the old Dropbox. It does function, so you should know that.
Oh, okay. In any event, the minutes are there. So if I can have a motion to accept them, no motion, sorry. Are there any changes? Yes, Jerry?
I was going to say, I have no objection.
Thank you. Okay. No objections. Thank you. All right. I did not get any information from the Long Island City Partnership with respect to their application. Colin, are they on the agenda soon to present to the commission? Are you aware of that?
Madam Chair, you said that, or I might have misread your email that you said you were doing the Zap portal. I received something today, so because you said you were using the Zap portal, I didn't forward it. Because when I asked you about the letter, because I thought we were going to write the letter, the vote occurred at the last meeting, and you gave me the explanation in the email. So
Yeah.
I do have something I can forward to you tonight.
Okay. The point that I want to make is that I would like to have the application that has been filed with city planning in hand.
Believe
Okay.
I have it. I thought from what you wrote, I probably misunderstood what you said because you said you were going to use the Zap portal, and that's how I took it. But I can get that I'll get it to you right now while you're doing what you're doing.
Okay. So I will forward the committee All right, so we'll do a letter. We'll do a letter of support as was according to the vote last month. I don't like to do letters that go to the commission without having the actual application that was filed with them, because things differ between the time that they come to us and they go to the commission. They're filed with the commission. I also believe that there was so much information that was given about what the bid is doing that, you know, you just don't have the wherewithal to retain everything. So I want to have that application before I write the letter, and I will let the commission, I'll forward it to the committee. And that would go to the board for approval also, because it's coming from them. The third item on the agenda, on the old business.
Madam Chair, can I ask a question just for processes and for grandfathering things in? Historically, when the board takes a vote and the letter goes out, the board took the vote to approve the letter. So you would then write the letter, the board office would put it on the letterhead, do all the protocol, and the letter would go out. It normally would not go back to the board for another approval. That has never transpired. And that's where I'm confused. So I just want to bring that up to ease your load, because that's usually and traditionally never part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Because the vote occurred.
Okay. Understood. The rule change, green fast track. Let me see. Are there, do you have, I'd like to hear what the committee members have to say about their opinions about this particular proposal by the commission. I just want to preface it by saying that the commission had its public hearing on this morning, and there were 17 speakers there, 6 of whom opposed it, and those who constituted the opposition were board members and a couple residents and a zoning professional, and then there were 13 in favor. Most of them were the Regional Plan Association, the Borough President of Manhattan, the various Rebney, Open New York, a number of real estate related organizations and individuals. It was interesting what they had, what the speakers in opposition had talked about. I have a lot of comments that they made. Some of them believe that the process that's in place now, which is basically a self-regulating process, because many developers will attempt to bring their projects in below the thresholds and therefore not required to have EASs or EISs. So it's kind of a monitor in and of itself. And by removing these regulations or these criteria, they're actually removing regulations for development. So or increasing the likelihood that projects will be larger or have more of an impact. There were what I'm going to do, there's a lot here, and so first what I want to do is hear from you if you've read the summary of what it is and what you think the implications of this proposal are on neighborhoods. What effect you think that a regulation removing these or changing the type 2 category is going to have on the community. So if there is anyone who wants to start the conversation up now. Yes, Evie?
Yeah, I think I did a quick email about it, and I might have said something at the last meeting that, you know, I have a lot of concerns about this. For some of the reasons that you kind of just mentioned, Liz, as well. Like there can be a we all know that after a zoning is approved, you know, the plans don't have to be kept to, right? Things can shift, the number of apartments, the height even, as long as it's conforming to the zoning. So I'm concerned that, you know, number one, things are already possibly getting fudged now, like in the way that you described, but it could happen even further with something like this where there's absolutely no kind of criteria, really. And we're talking about, you know, buildings that could be as high as 25 stories. And then not having an environmental review for such a large number of units. What happens when a building goes up right next to that and next to that as well, right? Like, so there's just kind of no monitoring at all. And right now the process I feel is flawed to begin with. But that doesn't mean like you just completely exempt, you know, a whole category of buildings in certain zones. So I'm pretty concerned about this. I would be against doing this, at least how it's written now for sure.
So, you know, the question is there anything that can be suggested in terms of,
Why
you
don't
know,
I just
what would-
answer that, Liz, before we go further?
Yeah, I wanted to just add
And
one
you,
more thing though.
and you,
I-
I
Hold
just
on,
want to
hold on.
clarify, because what was just said is not exactly correct. And Liz, being in city planning for so many years, you know that when a zoning change is submitted and an environmental review is prepared, it's typically, and I believe almost always, if not always, done on a worst case scenario. The worst case, the worst that could be built, the biggest that could be built based on the proposed zoning. So the impact, that's what the environmental study is done on, the worst case scenario. Am I right, Liz, or am I wrong?
Yeah, the determination is made on the most that can be developed on that site.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm going to be clear about that. So therefore, I believe this initiative is to take smaller properties, smaller developments, and try to, and I'm not going to suggest that I'm an expert in what's being proposed, because I haven't fully read it, but I believe that the initiative is to streamline. Will that potentially have some negative effects? It's all in the eyes of the beholder. Some people will say that we should have no parking in the city of New York. Some people will say we have to have bike lanes on every street in New York. Some people will say that every building in the city, including Chinese restaurants, should be electric. See how a wok works on an electric stove. So it all depends on your perspective. And there's extremes to everything. And there's a lack of extremity, you know, being extreme. So it's all in the eyes of the beholder. And I think that I don't think it's a done deal. I think there will have to be, like what's being happened right now, suggestions, compromise, and we'll see how it hashes out. So I encourage everybody to make their comments.
yeah. I just, you know, I just want to say that, you know, one of the things that was said at the meeting today, and I agreed wholeheartedly with it, was the fact that what this rule is saying is that, from my understanding, is that projects when projects come in, they're categorized in such a way to determine whether or not they have to do an EAS or not. So what they do is they look at you know, if they're not located in flood zones, if they meet the specifications for height and number of units, you know, if they're below the 175 or the 250 number of units, or if they meet other criteria, and if they're energy efficient, they immediately get designated as not having an impact. But what they don't say anything about is how the 10 other categories in the EAS and EIS are affected by that development. That, you know, like traffic and air quality and noise, etc. None of that is done as long when they fit into this little, you know, this elimination category. So, you know, and the other thing was, what does a community do? It doesn't get the knowledge about the proposed development or what could be done on the site to bolster the issues that they see that could arise from it. Now, buildings that are 15 stories aren't going to trigger an EAS, but they will have an impact in terms of shadows and other things in the neighborhood. So, you know, I mean, Jerry had mentioned that if a developer wants to go ahead with the project and get support, they're going to do that shadow study. But what's the point, you know, if it doesn't, if it's going to go through anyway? So you know, I have an issue. My issue is that I think for something that's going to be citywide, in a city that has neighborhoods that are different, you know, every district is different with respect to density and building height and character, et cetera. You can't have something that 25 stories is like enormous compared to us. We're getting our first 25-story building with Innovation Queens. And, you know, I think there's something, there's review that's lacking here. It's just, it's removing any kind of review. So I'm going to go back to the committee to get your comments. Amy, you want to say something?
Yeah, just a quick question, Liz. I appreciate your summary. And honestly, I have not had time to review. What is the timeline for this process of reviewing this fast track? And, you know, are there other public hearings that we can attend to kind of, you know, hear from the commission what their thoughts are on it?
Well, the commission had its hearing today.
Today, yeah.
And they are accepting comments from the public
Okay.
up until the 16th of the month.
That's not a whole lot of time.
Well, that's testimony. Okay. And you see, it's not a regular ULURP. It's not something that generally comes for review when they do these rule changes. It's just that they selected a set of rules that have so much of an impact on the community. So, so the 16th is for our comments to return to them.
Okay.
And something just left me, I was going to say, but anyway, oh, they would bring it back. We don't know what the commission is saying at this point because they just had their hearing. It will return to their review session. I don't know when, which is usually it's on a Monday, and it's probably 2 weeks from this past Monday will be the next one. I'm not assured that that's going to be it, but they're pretty eager to push this through. So they probably will discuss it at that meeting.
I'll be sure to watch today's, if it's online today, the meeting. Yeah,
it is. It's already online because I watched it today.
Thank you.
Okay, Richard?
Yes, one thing that I thought about with these environmental reviews in all these years I've been on the board, it's very rare that we've been able to actually read and interpret them and for our purposes. So I've often thought that they should be creating some sort of synopsis of these reviews so that because remember the problems we have with the 600-page resolution changes. It's the same thing with these environmentals. We don't use them. We have never used them in the 20 years. I don't think anybody's ever sat down to read one of these before a project comes down to us. We basically accept whatever the authors say, and that's it. So are they really serving that kind of purpose? There needs to be a way that they're more digestible for people like us if we're going to be using them for criteria. The way they are now is just not functional. You know, they're sort of useless. Now they may be of a lot more use on other levels of approval. Maybe they have staff up in the city council or things like that. They can dive into these things better. But on the level that we're dealing with, they really don't add any asset to our decisions. So I think that's something else that needs to be addressed.
Well, I think if I can just respond to you from my experience, they have been very useful with projects that were extremely controversial, extremely out of character, and what it does is provide the community with the background needed to you know, to support their positions or to make changes to the project to make it more amenable to the community and more character.
That's
we haven't, you know, we haven't had that in this community board. We haven't had, with the exception of Innovation Queens, we haven't had any kind of situation where the environmental statement really could go one way or the other, you know, could help.
Hallett's Cove, everything down there, Hallett's Peninsula, you know, that we've had some larger developments. But again, I don't remember a time when we actually sat down, you know, and did a deep dive into the environmental. We've never done that.
Well, I tell you, other boards have, and other organizations have with respect to the traffic impacts and, you know, where you have noise situations, near highways, et cetera. You know, it's
been challenged. And many other community boards, like a large project, the environmental review and submission have been challenged.
Saying that they were written with prejudice, right? And that they're wrong. Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say that. They're just, you could have two opinions from different consultants. So one guy hires Philip Habib, another guy hires Sam Schwartz. And to counter, it's like a peer review, and they don't always agree.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Evie, your hand is up again.
Yeah, just since we were talking about Innovation Queens, I mean, if you look at that whole development, you know, I guess I'd have to see how many units were in each building, but certainly in terms of number of stories, there were, you know, there was a 27-story, there was some 25, 24, whatever. So would, in a case like that, would some of them then be exempt from an environmental review and the others wouldn't, even though they're part of a similar development?
That's a good point.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like how, like.
Well, that brings into question phasing projects. I mean, that's something that wasn't even discussed here. I think you're right. They don't talk about, the only thing that the existing SECRA does is review a project within, well, they do look at the development within the next 10 years, I believe. The proposed, you know, the potential developments in the area, the soft sites that they think are going to be developed, and they bring that into the mix of impacts that will have to be dealt with in that community. So I think I'm not sure that it would be left out. It would have to be considered as part of the overall, you know, potential development in the area. So I don't think they would exclude individual buildings, and that was considered one, one project. So it's kind of unique in a way. I don't know. You'd have to look at how they did Hudson Yards or some kind of project like that to know what approach that they would take. And since we haven't had something like that here, I don't know. And well, evidence for Richard, we did not delve into the EIS. We had a completely different issue with Innovation Queens. We did have density issues, but it was more or less a context issue.
No, we did actually look at the EIS. We looked at, like, remember the shadows on the playground? We looked at, that was
Well,
an
yeah.
issue. There was also some of the issues regarding traffic and air quality. We did look at it for sure. And I feel like there were adjustments made based on some of the things that we saw, not everything, but
I think we
they
just
had to
have
kind of say how they would mitigate those things, and some of the ways that they were going to mitigate them just weren't acceptable, and we pushed back on those also.
It was a situation, again, like I said, that we asked the questions of the authors and they just gave us an explanation. We didn't get it. I would love to get some sort of a readable synopsis. They're going to obviously say that they were compliant. Everything, everything that issue will come up. The author's going to say that the project is compliant with everything. That's all they've ever said to us in the 20 years I've been doing this.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, Richard. And it's sort of become,
That's why this whole thing is.
No, it's like why, it's always going to be a negative declaration, or they're going to mitigate it, to make it a negative declaration. So it's you
Anyway.
just throw your hands up in the air, but we do what we can at this point. Brian?
Yeah, so both of Innovation Queens, Howlett's Point, Hudson Yards, you have a couple different large scale projects. Howlett's Point isn't yet, but I think it's pretty obvious that the rest of that water line is probably going to be developed. I know there's a lot of work going on down there right now. Innovation Queens has been back and forth a little bit. I think it depends. The process and the outcome could be two completely different things. Like almost to Evie's point earlier, what was the presentation that you gave to developers? What they do to kind of the environmental studies and who they hire to do these things. We just have to take into consideration, we live here. Part of my ignorance on some of these buildings, are there requirements for parking when it, above 200 units or above 175 units? I know, especially down by Howlett's Point, some of that area, it's congested as it is, and they want to put, obviously there's going to be some mixed use shopping, like a food market underneath the residential section. Are there requirements for parking to provide parking in those units first and foremost?
Well, that has to do with the zoning, and zoning is not being changed by these rules. Nothing related to zoning is changed. It's just.
But the city of Yes will change that. That's a whole other.
That's another issue. That's another topic. So that's what we have to look at with respect to what they're going to do in the upcoming the zoning text changes. This is merely designating what projects would qualify to not have to do an EAS or, an environmental review. What the project is, and that would be determined by the number of units and the height of the building.
Yeah, because like there's 6 and 8 story buildings that go up to 25 stories, like we're seeing closer to Northern Boulevard. It's different, of course, obviously. So.
And by the way,
Okay.
those buildings did do EISs because of the size of the buildings. So, those would not be exempt. They would have to do it. buildings like that would have to still do
Mhm.
it.
Okay,
Okay. So,
thank you.
I mean, what would you like to say to these people, to the commission? I mean, the only thing that they talk about is the height and the density as criteria for eliminating or doing a review. So I think that's what we really have to focus on. Do you think it's too high? Do you think it's okay? Do you think it's too low? What do you think would be
There were,
acceptable?
there were two different sections, right? Or two different areas with different criteria, right? I think part of it, you really have to match your criteria to the neighborhood, the criteria here has to be different than criteria somewhere in Manhattan, definitely, so.
It was matched to the zoning, all right? So everything from R1 to R4
And low density, yeah.
is low density, and it would be 175 units, or
Mhm.
what was it, 25 feet?
28 stories, you mean?
Stories.
I don't know,
Sorry,
that makes sense. That's not low density, 25 stories.
where's my thing? Wait,
R3 or 4?
I have so many facts in my head, I can't take it. Okay, so it's 175 units, no more than 20, that was not a height, it was the square footage, okay? No more than 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
Okay, that's in R1 to R4. And then in the second group, the medium and high density, it was 250 units, not more than 35,000 square feet. And let's see, maximum building height, 250 feet. Or if it's next to a park or public open space, no more than 50 feet.
50?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
okay. Still gonna cast a shadow. There's no difference between 15 and 50 when, okay. So that's the density related. And then the other specific criteria are excluding sites with archaeological and historical significance. Relying on the E designation to address hazardous materials, air quality, and noise issues. Exclude sites near arterial highways or in flood zones, and require development to forego, well, the city now requires everything be electric, any new development be electric, which is the fossil fuel issue that they want to avoid using.
Can I ask a question? Jerry, is he still there? Jerry, 250 units, what would be the average in New York City of a normal building, 250 units in one building? What kind of height are we really looking at?
You're muted,
I can't hear him. Okay.
Jerry. Jerry, you're muted.
Depends on how big the property is.
Well, yeah, of course, obviously, but as an average or something like that, what are we looking at?
An average. Let's say you have a 6,000 square foot footprint,
Mhm.
60 by 100 foot wide,
Mhm.
right? So you figure each apartment is about 850 square feet,
Mhm.
roughly. Let's go a little bit more, 900 with everything. All right, so 6,000. 6,000 divided by 900. It's only 7 apartments, let's say. So how many units did you say?
250 is what that's a
250? No.
Well,
So,
in our district, it would be, yeah, 250, yeah. Because that goes from R5 and up.
even if it was 10 apartments per floor,
That's 25 floors, yeah.
you need 25 floors. See, so
Maybe it should be a
a
third.
250 unit building would require a big floor plate, maybe a U-shaped building, maybe it's, 200 foot, a full corner from street to street, that kind of a thing, Probably would not be mid-block, probably be on a wide street type of thing.
Maybe they need to create a third designation of, I mean, yeah, in Manhattan and areas like that might make sense, but it seems like that 250 is just too big a chunk.
Well,
Not-
I think you're onto something. I think grouping R5, R6, and R5 and R6 into the high density, along with the high density criteria, is really not, it doesn't reflect what we're living in the R5 and R6 and even R7. Those are kind of medium heights.
That's our neighborhood, R5, R6, R7.
Yeah. Those are medium heights, I think. So rather than 25 stories, those are 10, 12.
Yeah, 14 is an R7X. That's the highest other than the large buildings that we're putting up.
There's a middle group of buildings that they're not,
That's what I'm
somewhat
thinking.
more appropriate for us and most of the city, and not, that they're grouping us in. It's like the whole concept is one size fits all, and that's not what happens.
That's the approach I would take. I'd try to figure out a third destination.
Elizabeth, if I could just say one thing, I agree. I agree with that point. And I'm looking at Northern Boulevard. I'm looking at the Hallett's Point area, which has waterfront, and even down by like Wildflower Studios in that area where they're, you're going to have, this has to be a case by case basis. I mean, Astoria has waterfront property. Astoria has views of the Manhattan skyline. When you're going to build 25 feet, somebody's going to get upset about, I mean, where this is going to go, what the shadow impact is going to be on whatever park. Astoria is you have Astoria Park. I mean, there's a lot of diverse areas just in Astoria alone. I don't know that a one size fits all works for this area. It's just, I mean, depending on where the thing's going to go, it might have to be done case by case. I mean, this might have to be a separate study for each project. I'm all for putting, I mean, that, like I said, the Hollis Point waterfront, that there's lot after lot that are empty. I mean, that's most likely going to go however many stories at some point. Those studies might need to be done independently because the waterfront is different than Northern Boulevard, I mean, and they're going to develop on both of them. I don't know about the one size fits all in general. I don't know if that helps, but I agree with that. Like, it doesn't seem like if something like that is going to work. I mean, we are going to look at them case by case anyway, but I don't know. Like you said, it's going to be different. And especially here in this neighborhood, we have very diverse, environmentally diverse areas that we're looking to develop. I mean, the whole neighborhood is developing pretty rapidly. And again, they're very diverse environmentally, I think.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay. All right. Well, anyone else want to comment? All right. Well, I will take this and try to put together something. And no specifics. No.
You'd have to do a study to actually be specific, something like that, but.
Well, no, I understand that, but when I said no specifics, I meant specifically to the proposal they're making. Where is it? Okay, we talked about the density but the heights. Okay.
I have one more question, Liz. Maybe Colin can get us this information, but they get the breakdown. In the agenda, you gave the breakdown of the buildings.
That was only from
for our project.
Right.
Did you put that together? So we don't necessarily know I'm curious what the 4 buildings between 201 and 250 units were, even just to kind of help us visualize and conceptualize this. Do you
I did-
remember offhand which ones those were? Or?
The number of stories you're talking.
Yeah, at the bottom of the summary of the fast track document.
This one I didn't look at the height, the building height. I was only looking at the number of units to understand how excluding anything below 175 and 250 was going to affect us. And in effect, more than 80% of our projects that we've seen over the last 10 years, or since 2019, not even 10 years, since 2019, more than 80% would not have any kind of environmental review. It's just the biggies, Hallett's, Innovation Queens. There's another one, I forgot the other one. So, the point, I was just looking, I'll go back and I'll look at the height, the building heights that are proposed, and
Yeah.
also the square footage, see if there can be, if there's any kind of cutoff that can be suggested.
But the point that you made, I think, is really good, that basically we wouldn't see 80% of the project. We wouldn't have seen 80%
Right.
of the
It wouldn't,
projects.
they wouldn't have had any secret review.
Yeah.
And that's because we only had three of them that were over 250 units. Let me see, then we had over 175, we had seven projects that have had some kind of review. So, okay. I'll see if I can put something up, but the point of this also was the fact that the basis that they use, this whole, the whole list that they used, there was no analysis that was provided. They just made a statement about, they were going to make it based on that list. And when I started looking at it, I noticed that we were missing. So who knows what other boroughs were missing. And also, it was going to eliminate most development in medium density areas from being reviewed environmentally. So, okay. Anyway, I'll look at it further and see what we can come up with before to send it to them. Okay. So, I don't have anything else. Are there any other issues? Where's my agenda?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. Any objections?
No objections, second.
Have a good night.
Good night, and thank you all. Talk to you soon.
Thank you,
Have a
Liz.
nice night, everybody.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you
Thank you,
soon.
Liz. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.